I am super excited about today's guest, Tim Angelillo. He is the CEO and founder of Sourced Craft Cocktails, which you're going to want to check out. But more than that, he's going to go into what it means to really oversee and work with the people that you manage that manage others. So lean in and check this out.
Welcome to Masters of Employee Development, Mike Acker's YouTube segment devoted to training team members in any type of organization. Your host is a best-selling author, corporate trainer, and business leader. Find out more about Mike at mikeacker.com. Each episode, Mike welcomes a CEO, HR director, or other experienced manager responsible for leadership and development. Together, Mike and his guest expert discuss training successes, challenges, and best practices. Lean in, listen, and take part in a community dedicated to improving life through increasing leadership. Now, here's your host, Mike Acker.
Tim, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on it.
Mike, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm really looking forward to diving in and really helping to see personally the culture that you've developed, but also all the people who are listening. I'm sure they're going to be very intrigued at the culture of Sourced Craft Cocktails. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your company before we dive into leadership.
Well, Mike, I don't know where your audience is today, but just remember, it's sourced. It's always 5:00 somewhere. So I hope you brought your party hat because it's time to talk about how we built the largest craft cocktail delivery business in the country. So my background is actually, I've worked in each of the 3 tiers of alcohol distribution. So when you think about the alcohol industry, it's a $254 billion a year marketplace. Wow. On an annualized basis. So it's a pretty big addressable market. And my favorite part is it's recession proof. So there have been 13 economic declines in this country in the last 100 years. And in every single one of them, the amount of alcohol that gets enjoyed in a bad economy is actually increased from a good. So we as consumers are quote unquote numbing the pain. I don't
know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's a great thing if you're in our shoes. So the way alcohol works from a distribution standpoint is it's regulated by the 21st Amendment to our United States Constitution, which ended prohibition the 14 years the federal government had made the entire alcohol industry illegal. And what it created on December 5th, 1933, is the 3-tiered system of alcohol distribution. So I actually sat in each of those 3 tiers and had a really good understanding of how the 21st Amendment worked from a distribution standpoint. And what we created was a new route to market for the $250+ billion monster that is the alcohol industry. And we allowed consumers to use this. It's what we refer to as their remote control to life. It's their iPhone or Android device to order a cocktail directly from their phone to their unlicensed front door, their home or their office. And so after starting the company in 2015, we've grown by triple digits every year. We're now in the top 8 US cities across the country. And we both help consumers enjoy their Friday night, as well as business owners and business leaders create team building through our enterprise product, which we call Source Socials.
That's incredible. So this takes more than just a great idea and a great market. So you have this idea, you were in the industry, you see the market, you know it's out there. And so you start going for it. It starts taking off. How did you create the team that could take what you're doing and put it into all the markets that you're in?
Absolutely. And I think you're 100% right, Mike. Yes, you have to have a good idea. Yes, you have to see a marketplace. Yes, you have to have the tenacity to go after it. Yes, you have to be a little bit lucky. And we happen to be very lucky. The pandemic and everyone getting locked into their house meant they went to find their alcohol from their phone as opposed to driving to a store. And that was very fortunate for Sourced in that the entire e-commerce marketplace of the alcohol industry went from what would be $1 billion of the $250 billion to what will be $50 billion in the span of 3 years. Yeah, so you're talking about really, really almost straight vertical growth. And that was luck, right? As entrepreneurs, you have to be able to acknowledge that timing is something you don't control. And we were very lucky that that timing ended up being absolutely spot on for us. But at the end of the day, the people are the product. I don't care if you're a craft cocktail delivery business. I don't care if you make a software. I don't care if you run a doctor's office. It's irrelevant which widget, so to speak, you're actually making, producing, and servicing. At the end of the day, your people are your most important resource. And we looked at it in sort of two different swim lanes. The first is, can we communicate our North Star?
Yeah.
An organization has no ability to have all the people, whether that's 2 people or 200,000 people that are a part of that company. If you cannot verbalize and actually live, this is the reason we all got out of bed on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, etc. morning, then you can't actually all arrive. And I learned that by being at Yahoo and helping lead their e-commerce business, where we had a lot of different directives and we couldn't quite figure out, like, why do we all come to work every day? And at Sourced, our North Star is to be of service. That's why we get out of bed. That's why you join this company. That is what we do for consumers and office managers. And at the end of the day, everything about what we do, from who we hire to what products we bring to market to how we discuss with our consumer, our intern employees, we are built to be of service. And I think the first most important thing in our journey was we were very, very clear about that in 2015 before we even launched the first cocktail delivery. And we've been incredibly consistent every single minute of every single day, never forgetting and always articulating that our North Star is to be of service. The second swim lane that was very, very important in our journey was being able to communicate what our company values are. So how do you be of service specifically? And for us, it's what we call the 3 T's: trust, transparency, and tenacity.
Okay, let's pause right there. Trust, transparency, tenacity. I think that's one of the things that I do a lot of, Tim, is I write and I help people in communication. First of all, by the way, I'm watching you. I'm going, man, he's a great communicator. And it's just what I do a lot of. On the side of that, I notice how much what you're talking about actually parallels with communication. My second book I wrote, I talk about if you're going to do any speaking, you need to know why you're doing it. And it can't be because you have to do it. Oh, my boss told me, or I was scheduled to be on a podcast, or whatever it might be. You have to have a why that's more than just production. I get paid, I have to. And when you were talking about the why, the North Star, I thought that's exactly it. Really, anything of value that you got to do. I mean, yeah, you need a paycheck. Yes, you want to do that. But I love that you tied it to something more significant than just, hey, it's for the paycheck. I'm going to be of service. So I want to come back to that later on when we talk about hiring, because I'm sure there's something in that there that you're probably doing to make sure that people are not just jumping on the board for a paycheck. But these three values right here, is this something that you articulated at the very beginning? So tell us a little bit about where these showed up. Were these something you found thinking about The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni? Were they something that was, oh, hey, they're there? Or was it something that you said at the very beginning of starting Sourced Craft Cocktails, you said, this is what we're going to do. These are what we're going to hold on to?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Mike. For us, it's something we did at the very, very beginning. So we have a 10-step business discovery process. As an entrepreneur, I'm like a raccoon, right? Shiny object. Ooh, ooh. And I think that's part of the blessing of us as entrepreneurs, is that we like solving problems. I think it's also part of the curse, is that we try to solve too many problems at once and don't solve any one problem to 100% completion. I think it's something as entrepreneurs we've got to be careful of. And for us, one of our 10 steps was articulating what was the values of the company in how do we be of service. For us, the North Star and the values are directly linked. The values are basically describing how we are going to hold each other accountable to being of service. And for us, the 3 T's are as follows: trust. Everybody that joins the company can trust that no one else is on the journey and in the rowboat that doesn't actually want to be of service.
It's good.
And what happens when you have that first T, I trust that you're not debating, we refer to as the healthy debate. If you were outside of our organization, you would look at it in some cases and go, wow, they're really arguing.
Yeah.
And that's true, is that we will really have, in some cases, a very impassioned, healthy debate. But because we can trust that everyone is coming at it from a position of, how do I best be of service? How do I best be of service to a bartender? How do I best be of service to a customer? How do I best be of service to an investor? Whatever the case may be, you can trust that no one's getting in the rowboat that hasn't been vetted for being of service. And that's why they want to go to work here. Yeah. The transparency part, the second T, is also really important. We know that every single day, including today, starting with me, that 50% of the things that I do today will be very successful. They will help us on our journey of being of service. 50% of the things that I do today will be very good learning lessons. Which means they be epic failure, right? And that's true of me all the way down to a project manager, a sales rep, an ops manager, et cetera. And we know that going in. We tell everyone before they get hired, we do not look at it as win or lose. It is win or learn. And our expectation is that 50% of the things that you do today will be very good learning opportunities. Why
the 50%? Why the?
It's just what we found to be our gravity point. It's 1 out of 2 swings is a big whiff. And as I like to remind people, if you put it into a sports analogy, I started my career at Sports Illustrated. So I'm much better than I was after 12 years at SI of everything was a sports analogy. Now, 1 out of 10 is a sports analogy for me. But if you put it into a sports analogy, if you go 3 for 10 in Major League Baseball, so for every 10 at bats, you get a base hit 3 times, you bat 300. Mike, what do they do if for your career you batted 300? Where do you end up in Cooperstown? You end up in where?
Yeah, I mean, major. I don't know.
The Hall of Fame. You end up in literally.
You're talking to like the guy who was like baseball illiterate. Like I'm like, let's see.
You end up
not a trick question, but
yeah, you end up in the Hall of Fame. That's where you end up if you bat 300. So we view batting 500 as very, very good, right? And we allow people to understand that our expectation is that every other swing is going to be a learning opportunity. But
I just learned a little bit about Hall of Fame right there. So,
here's
that's amazing. That's amazing. So you do this at the hiring process, though.
Totally. We tell them up front before they ever even come in that we anticipate every other thing that they do will be a good learning opportunity. And we're great with that because we view it as Hall of Fame material. And what we're clear about, there are 2 very important caveats to every single experiment that we each do, starting with me. You cannot do anything 50% of the way. Going 50% of the way has a 100% failure rate. So you have to go all the way, complete the task to 100% the best of your ability. And number 2 is you have to set the goal line before you start. So if the marketing department is running a new ad campaign and we expect a ROAS, a return on ad spend, to be a 2, and the ROAS after running the campaign for 30 days is a 1.5, that's a learning opportunity. Mm-hmm. Nobody's upset that it failed, but we're very clear that, hey, transparently, that did not hit 2. Mm-hmm. So what is it that we need when we swing the next time to do to raise it by 0.5 to get to a win? The last T is tenacity, which is really, really important. And we define all the way at the beginning of the hiring process and in every day thereafter what tenacity means and what it doesn't mean. What it doesn't mean, right? A triple digit growth company, right? Rocket ship of a ride. You're growing at 150%, 180%, 200% a year over year, right? It's just this really crazy, blessed, rapid expansion. What tenacity does not mean for us is I'm not going to be emailing you on a Saturday night at midnight. It's not going to happen, right? And the reason it's not going to happen is because I think it's rude to start with. And secondly, more importantly, from a business context, it's a bad business decision because burnout people, starting with me, do really poor work, right? So on a Saturday night at midnight, our employees need to be doing whatever they're passionate about outside of work, right? That's very different from each of us, right?
Which might match up to some of what they do inside work.
If for some of them, right? For some of them, for somebody like me, right, who's blessed with 3 small children at midnight on a Saturday night, I'm sleeping because my human alarm clock is waking up at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning, no matter what I do Saturday night, right? For some of our other folks, that could mean going to a music show. That could mean traveling. There's lots of different things that people are interested in, and we want them to be just as passionate about their interest outside of work.
Yeah.
What tenacity doesn't mean is this startup culture of we're just going to be in it 24/7, 365. It's like that is a terrible business decision in my experience, because if I do that, I'm going to make it 3 months like that, maybe 4 months like that, and then I'm just going to start mailing in the actual decision-making process, which means we're going to end up with way more than 50% learning opportunities. What tenacity does mean is what we refer to as the want to. And what we mean by do you have the want to is that, and here's our filter, Elon Musk put a Tesla into outer space as a PR stunt. He blew the rocket with the cherry red Tesla up 6 times on the launch pad before the 7th one actually got into outer space. And he actually put a cardboard cutout of an astronaut, and he actually filmed with planet Earth as his backdrop playing Space Odyssey. If you haven't seen this PR stunt that Elon Musk did, please take a minute, YouTube it. It's one of the most amazing PR stunts ever, right? That's actual rocket science, right? A rocket ship off a launch pad with God knows how much fuel up into orbit. It unfolds a Tesla. He has a video camera on it. He gets the photo and the video and then sends the Tesla onto Mars. Real rocket science. I'm pretty sure if he wanted to do that, and the engineers at SpaceX and Tesla wanted to do that and actually accomplished it on the 7th try, we can do anything we want with our little craft cocktail delivery business. It's not that complicated, but you have to want to. You have to, and you'll excuse my French, you have to get off your you-know-what and actually go try.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how we built the company. Our North Star is to be of service. And we do that through the 3 T's: trust, transparency, and tenacity.
The transparency to me sounds a lot like candidness, that you're able to say, hey, you're not living up to the value, and you got the trust part. So, it's not it's not coming at it from a bad angle. It's not like blame casting or judgment. We're on the same rocket ship. We're all in the same boat. We're all going the same direction. And it seems to me, or from your results, candidly, you're not matching up. Does that make some uncomfortable conversations at times?
It absolutely does. It makes some very uncomfortable conversations. But the reason that we can have them is that everyone knows that 1 out of 2 is going to be a learning opportunity. Yeah. Like we set up at the beginning of it's no one's individual fault. We win or learn as a team.
Yeah.
And every other topic that you have a discussion on, we should have a discussion about what we're learning, because we knew something in there didn't work. And what's great is you don't have to have a debate about whether it worked or it didn't work. We took that out of the equation, and the way we took it out of the equation, right? It was no longer someone's personal opinion about win or learn. We said we went 100% of the way, and here was the goal line before we started, and it's just sheer math. Like, did we get 1,000 orders or did we not get 1,000 orders? Out of those 1,000 orders, did 90% of them repeat or did they not? And if they didn't, that means there was something in the operational side of the company, the actual delivery and experience part, that isn't leveling up to where it should be. It didn't hit 90%. So something's in there. Let's talk about what it is. But you have to be able to communicate to people that this is what our expectations are as a team.
Yeah.
It's not personal, and the goal line's been set. So let's just see which side of the fence it's on and then discuss what to try next. Now, there's one last piece that's really important. And I think as leaders, this part is absolutely critical. If you're going to take that path, Mike, you have to be able to let it go after you've applied the learning. So what you can't do 6 weeks later, when marketing comes back to you and says, I got another new campaign, you can't go, well, I don't expect you to get a 2 ROAS, right? You got a 1.5 last time, right? That you can't do. You apply the learning, right? We acknowledge that 1.5 is not 2, and we acknowledge that that's learning opportunity. We apply whatever the learning is, and we go at it again. What we can't do is keep rubbing it in people's nose, right?
Yeah.
Once you've addressed it, once you've learned from it, you swing again like you've never had an at-bat before, right? And that's the important part where I think sometimes as leaders, we make a mistake, is that we didn't really let it go. We were upset about it. We had some sort of resentment around it, and then we brought it back up. You can't bring it back up. Once you've applied the learning, it's done. You close the door, you move on to the next, and you swing just as hard as the first 10,000 times you've swung.
I think this is a huge aspect to just key in on a little bit here. We talked about one of the questions I always like to ask people is, what are the challenges that you see in management? And as mentioned before, the majority of people listening to this are managing at some level, whether it's super high, whether it's entry, or whether they're even almost there, or they own practices, businesses, whether they're entrepreneurs, they're in that management. And what you're speaking to here is not something that a lot of people talk about that ability to forgive, to forget in a good way. So can you just flesh that out a little bit more for us? Maybe tell a story using pseudonyms or a past career, because I think there's something for all of us to grab a hold of right here.
Absolutely. So Mike, I'll share the part that I struggle with, that I have to remind myself on a daily basis. The first thing I think that's very, very important for a manager, whether you're a founder, CEO, or you're a first-time manager and you manage one person, irrelevant which of those two, what you have to make sure that you're orienting to every morning is that your job now is to be of service to them. My job is no longer to be of service to Diageo, the world's largest alcohol company and one of our largest clients. My job is not to be of service to Bob Smith, an individual consumer in San Francisco who ordered a cocktail kit. My job is to be of service to my direct reports so that they can be of service to their direct reports, so that ultimately those individuals can be of service to Diageo or Bob Smith. And I think the first part that's really, really challenging to remember is that your job as a manager is literally to get them what they need and to give them guidance so that they can go on from there. And what's interesting about it is that, and that's a really hard thing, but what's interesting about it is if you don't do that, your business won't scale.
Yeah.
So if I had not done that, Source Craft Cocktails would have gotten to $390,000 worth of revenue on an annualized basis, and we'd have plateaued, because that was the most amount I could personally do in the first year, selling and doing the operations.
Right.
So I had to realize I had to be of service to our first account executive. I had to be of service to our first ops manager so that we could then actually expand. And there's nothing wrong, by the way, with the $400,000 a year business. That's a great small business if that's what you want. But if you want to grow, you have to understand as a manager that your job is now to be of service to them. And you can never put something outside of them above on the priority list. And that's really hard to do, particularly if you start as an entrepreneur doing all the work yourself. The second thing you have to realize is that transition from doing the work to managing people doing the work is the hardest of any individual's career. And because it's so hard, you have to realize with a first-time manager, you're going to have to lean in and pour into them in a much greater time and a much more specific manner to make sure that they're making that transition, because it doesn't come intuitively to 95% of people. Right. What they'll do is they'll go, God, that person's annoying me because I can't do my work. That's how they'll express it. Right. And that means that you're not doing a good job helping them make that transition from doing the work to managing people doing the work. And you have to remember, this is a really difficult transition. You can't hold it against them. Only 5% of the people just wake up and have the God-given ability to do that intuitively. So that means for 95% of your staff, you're really going to have to pay attention that way. And those are the two things when I think about managing people that I'm always trying to remind myself, my job is to be of service to them. And when I have new or early managers, I have to pay even more attention that I'm actually training them up to go through that transition of doing the work to managing people doing the work.
There's probably a good sports analogy right there. You got that star player that for years, his work is to make the score, do whatever it is, right? I grew up in Mexico playing soccer. So the big thing there is to get the ball in the goal. That's the big goal. And then you go, now you're a coach. You're not kicking anymore. And so the only way for you to do anything, especially soccer coaches, there's not too much coaching you do during the game. So it's all beforehand. And then just watching them, and you're pretty much helpless as you're just out there watching them do what you've trained them to do throughout the week. And I'm sure there's lots of sports analogies that you could bring into that.
And I think the important part as the manager, if you will, of that soccer club is that it's your job to also identify your talent. Mm-hmm. But the worst thing you can do is take one of your individual contributors who's great at individually contributing, who loves individually contributing, and promote them up into being a manager. Right? You have to actually there are lots of ways to get that person incremental compensation opportunities.
And that's a huge key. I would pause right here because I have so many people who come to me, Tim, who are saying, hey, I'm on a management track and I've been doing fantastic doing this. And I've been now noted as management material. And they come to me and we do like an intro assessment. I'm like, man, let's just ask some questions right here. Is there a way for you to do what you're doing extremely well and just to get some more money out of it? Is there something that you've done or you know about that's a good answer to that question?
Totally. So I think there are two pieces that you need to recognize with that individual contributor. The first is they're most likely asking for the management promotion because they're after two things very specifically: recognition and compensation.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. And if you determine that person isn't going to be a good manager, then the job is, how do I get them more recognition and compensation in the position that they're currently in, that they're great at? And there are lots of ways to do that. And the part that's interesting, and I was very specific about the order of those, because if you look in the world of the Great Resignation that we're all as owners and managers and leaders going through, and it's real. I mean, it's
very real.
18 headcount open right now, 18. And out of the 18, 70% of them are growth and 30% of them are replacements, right? We've lost some people for reasons that just blow my mind. Like one guy who'd been with us for years said, hey, there's a new surf park open in Palm Springs, California, and I want to go surf there. I mean, what do you, and by the way, good for him. He knew what was a priority to him and he was willing to take the risk to go do it. So I have, no editorial comment, but there's nothing I could do as the leader or the business owner because we're not going to open in Palm Springs. Right. And so it's like, okay, well, that's somebody replaced. But what you have to realize in the Great Resignation is that compensation isn't the first thing they look for.
Yeah.
It's recognition of their contributions and an understanding of how their contribution fits to a greater cause than their individual role. Those are the first two things people look at. Number three is, do they like their direct boss or not? If they hate their direct boss, and if you see in one part of your organization a lot of flight in terms of employees leaving, the first thing you should do is look at who's managing that department. Number one. Number four in people's list, recognition, understanding the company's culture and values and how it applies to their role and them specifically, their individual boss. Number four is their paycheck.
Let's go back to number three real quick. It's not always that they're leaving the company, because I have a lot of people who work for these mega companies. It's just that they're constantly moving out of that department.
Totally.
And because, they're just like, can I move something else? And they're bringing up all kinds of, I just more interested in whatever. No, you're not. You just want to get away from the boss and you don't want to say it.
Well, and here's the thing. Again, when we come back to as a leader, whether again, it's founder, CEO, or you lead and manage one person, if that department head is got a lot of turnover, again, either people leaving the company all the way or transferring inside the company to another department, it is you, the leader, who is failing, not that department head. Mm-hmm. Because it is your job to be of service to them. And I think that's really, really important when you've got to sit back and take accountability. It's sort of what I like when I'll do some mentoring, because I was very blessed at Sports Illustrated and Yahoo. I had some really great mentors. So that's really important to me. I pick no more than 2 people a quarter, because that's all I have the opportunity to really, truly pay attention and be of service based on all the other things on my plate. So I don't overextend myself, but those 2 people, I'm very serious about making sure that I'm contributing. Some are inside the company, some are outside the company, right? And you have to make sure that as you're doing that mentoring, you're teaching them that your role is to be of service to that department head and help that department head be a better manager, right? It's not the department head's responsibility. And when I tell some of the people that I'm mentoring, because they'll look at me and be like, wow, fastest growing craft cocktail business in the country, became the largest craft cocktail business, founder, CEO, like what an amazing opportunity. I want that. I want what you have, which is great. And I always share with them, I want you to memorize one word and one word only. And that word is accountability. Because if you want to be the leader, you are accountable for everything.
Yeah.
Right. And you never take credit for the win, but you're accountable for every single learning opportunity that happens. Whether you've directly had knowledge of it or not, at the end of the day, the proverbial buck will stop with you. And you have to be willing to accept that accountability. You have to deal with the stress of that accountability. You have to understand that if something's not going right, it's not their fault. It's something that you are doing that you need to change doing and learn from to apply again and try to help that person grow. And so I think that's a really important part, where as managers, sometimes we look at it like, well, we delegated the work and now it's theirs. Like, nope, that's not how it works, because you're accountable for every single learning opportunity in the company, which means if there's a failure, that's on you too. And I don't think a lot of people realize that until you sit in the founder CEO seat and you're like, wow, this is a lot of pressure and it's a little lonely.
Tim, this is so great. And I want to honor our time, because I know I told you it was 30 minutes and here we are at 30 minutes. There's so much. So maybe we'll dialogue some more and do something another time, because I feel like right now you're mentoring me, you're mentoring the audience. And so much of what you're talking about is going in areas that are not the normal thing that people are picking up. And a lot of people are looking up for, how do I do it? And you're talking about the heart behind it.
Absolutely. And Mike, you can never forget that I don't care what line of business you are, dentist, lawyer, doesn't matter. Your people are going to make or break your success. You could be the smartest person on planet Earth, but you literally can't do it by yourself. So putting time and investing time and money in your people will determine the outcome of your arc. Success or failure of your business, your department, your company. So make sure that you're always focused on the people part, particularly as you start to scale. It's been an honor to be with you. Thank you for sharing a little bit of our story with your audience. And you can always find a great craft cocktail at sourcecraftcocktails.com.
Yeah, for everybody who's looking at how to do a happy hour right there, grab a Zoom, get some craft cocktails. I'm sure that you have a plan even for that, to do those socials. I love that. That was a great idea right there. I do socials with people all across the United States and kind of just these little coaching workshops. So that might be a fun way to do it. Thank you so much, though, Tim. Really appreciate it. And I would love to dialogue some more and perhaps have you on in a future if you'd like to, because I feel like we just scratch the surface of some of the things that you have to share and go even broader and to make it something where, how can we get Tim and his message out there? Because you have a great heart. So thank you. And thanks to all of our listeners for checking in this week on YouTube, on podcast as well. Make sure you take a moment to like, subscribe, follow, share, and check out Tim and his company. I'll put those in the show notes as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to Advance with Mike Acker, a podcast designed to provide an edge for leaders through improving practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Mike is a best-selling author and business owner who has helped many leaders increase their skills and their confidence, propelling them to new heights in their personal and professional endeavors. Join an incredible group of professionals taking the steps to become better leaders at connect.stepstoadvance.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.